In class, Mizumoto greeted Sino and casually asked how his weekend trip to the burial mound had actually gone. Sano admitted it had not been special at all, and said he had barely managed to investigate anything. Mizumoto teased that Sino really did love adventure and guessed he must have come from a rich family. Sino instantly shot that down and said his family had nothing to do with why he loved that place, though his irritation with his parents began to show. Mizumoto laughed and pointed out that Sino always reacted like that whenever parents came up, then asked if he had spent the break alone. After an awkward pause, Sino praised Mizumoto for valuing his relationship, while Mizumoto cheerfully admitted he had spent that time with his girlfriend. Mizumoto then asked if Sino wanted a girlfriend too. But Sino flatly denied it and said having one would ruin his weekends and keep him from adventuring, making Mizumoto call him a hopeless adventure addict. Still grinning, Mizumoto pushed further and asked what the springtime of youth was even supposed to mean to Sino. Sino struggled for an answer and insisted it was not like he was completely uninterested. After hesitating, Sino gave a blunt answer that right away made the situation feel inappropriate. A girl bluntly said some girls thought Sino saw women as little more than objects, and Sino instantly told her to stop. Sino hurried to deny saying that and clarified that he was not focused on girls in a shallow way, nor did he want attention from all of them. Another girl pointed out that there were plenty of cute girls around them, especially the committee president, and added that Natsuno herself was cute too. A boy argued that if a girl heard herself described that way, she would probably hate it. Sino then brought up Natsuno, saying she was small. And another boy awkwardly added that if she had been born a boy, she might have been more popular. The girls kept listing qualities, saying Akitsu-san was kind and sociable, that she and another girl always looked good together, and that being next-door neighbors gave them a really nice balance. Hearing that, one boy jokingly twisted the compliment into saying Akitsu-san must be stylish and mature, while Sino snapped that was not what it meant. A black-haired girl quietly reacted to the mention of Fuyushima-san and seemed to lock on to the name. The boy said some people thought she gave off a cold, mysterious aura and called her the Snow Woman, while Sino defended her and insisted she was more beautiful than cute and would be even more likable if she smiled more. As the girl rose to her feet, Sanyo added that her cold attitude was popular anyway, then made a rude remark that drew an uneasy reaction, while another boy said that was not the issue at all. As the chatter dragged on, someone brought up the homeroom teacher and said they should stop talking about people and focus on class. Natsuno urged everyone to take their seats and announced that homeroom was starting. Sino glanced at Natsuno and thought that if she wore normal clothes instead of a jersey, she would probably look even better. Natsuno said she agreed with him, then right away called the class to rise, attention, and bow. The scene shifted as Sohei prepared to leave, and the adults told him to be good and wait for them. Sohei said he wanted to go on an adventure too, explaining that he had dreamed of adventuring with his parents ever since he was little. A hand stopped him as he was told not yet, because the neighborhood mountain was still too dangerous. One parent gently told him he could stay and watch the house, while Sohei realized they had left him behind again without letting him join the adventure. Time passed, and even after more than 10 years, Sohei was still the one left watching their backs as they moved on without him. Suhei declared that he still wanted to become an adventurer, and it was noted that he had earned excellent grades in school for that very reason. Suhei said he trained every single day to build his strength, driving himself through one exercise after another. He thought that to become an adventurer, he first needed a proven track record, and only then could he finally step onto the adventuring stage. As he opened the door, he told himself that if he could just reach that stage, everything would finally begin. The moment he stepped inside, he stopped cold, noticed something strange, and let out a confused breath. He admitted he was spacing out, then reacted warily as something in the hallway felt wrong, and he wondered what that had been. In the sudden blackout, the entire atmosphere turned tense and disorienting. When the scene returned, Sohei found himself in a stone basement and panicked, wondering what had happened, where he was, and why his house even had a basement. Still shaken, he asked himself why he was there, until a nearby torch all of a sudden flared to life and made him freeze. Standing in the doorway, he hesitated as the torchlight revealed a dark stone passage stretching far beyond him. Staring down the endless corridor, he could only wonder in disbelief what kind of place this was. Sohei stared ahead in alarm and wondered what any of this was supposed to mean. Looking at the stone passage, he realized his basement was never supposed to be this huge and should have been nothing more than a storage space. He tried to calm himself by guessing it might somehow be part of the first report he had not read before room, but panic surged when he remembered his parents were abroad and he had no way to contact them. Then he noticed a notebook lying on the floor and froze at the sight. As he reached toward it, he all of a sudden noticed a strange mark on his hand and could only stare in confusion. Opening the notebook, he found a message saying that, guided by the will of the labyrinth, he would experience its trials, and it wished him the best of luck. He read on and learned that the labyrinth used a level system, where high levels meant strength and low levels meant weakness. He discovered that he could check his own level simply by looking at his right palm. He then learned he could inspect other people and monsters by closing one eye. The explanation added that for monsters, LV referred to level, while for humans it indicated a personal condition, and the implication made the whole moment deeply awkward. He read that both humans and monsters used indicators of strength, but monsters specifically grew stronger through battle experience. The next line explained that humans increased their strength through inappropriate personal conduct, making the moment abruptly uncomfortable. Suhei stared at the note in disbelief, questioning why that would make anyone stronger before reluctantly admitting it was exactly what was written. He kept reading and learned that every floor of the labyrinth contained treasure chests with magic tools that could only be used inside, replenished yearly, and became more effective as his level increased. The notebook warned that any damage taken inside the labyrinth would remain until he left, but excessive injury would return him to the state he was in before entering, while all items found there would be lost and restored to the treasure chests, so surviving with as little damage as possible was essential. Gripping the notebook, he realized this was far more serious than he had first hoped. A tense smile crossed his face as he wondered if this might actually be his chance. He resolved to survive the trials before him and use them to move one step closer to becoming an adventurer. Looking down the corridor, he noticed wind blowing from behind and realized he was already somewhere beneath the house next to his own. After walking for some time without finding monsters or treasure chests, he noted how unusually wide the place was, and began to suspect the notebook had been meaningless nonsense. As he moved deeper through the corridor, he noted again how spacious the labyrinth was, then all of a sudden paused when something caught his eye. He all of a sudden found a treasure chest and blurted out in shock that it really was a chest. Thrilled that this was his first discovery as an adventurer, he hurried to open it and wondered where the key was. He quickly realized the chest was not locked and reached for it at once. The excitement overtook him, and he grinned to himself as he thought this prize was his. In the very next instant, something made him freeze, an alarm flashed across his face. He cried out in pain as he was all of a sudden thrown off balance, unable to understand what had just happened. Staring upward, he realized in disbelief that there was a tree growing in a place like this. His shock deepened as the tree began to move, and he could only stare, thinking there was no way this was real. Faced with the living tree's monstrous form, he recoiled in terror and realized this thing was a genuine threat. As the monster tree let out a harsh roar, he panicked and wondered if it was guarding the treasure chest. Feeling a strange numbness spread across his face, he cursed under his breath and struggled to understand what was happening. While the tree roared again, fear slammed into him, and he wondered if he was really about to lose to a monster tree. In that instant, he recalled the warning not to go to the neighboring mountain because it was still too dangerous, and remembered being told he could at least serve as the house sitter. Refusing to give up, he forced his hand onto the sword and muttered that even he could still do this. He cried out as the tree's attack came crashing down, barely reacting in time under the sudden pressure. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. He lunged in close with a strained grunt, forcing his way through the danger as he drove his blade into the trunk. His strike landed cleanly, and a sharp burst ripped through the tree as the blow finally shattered its body. With the monster broken and fading away, he stood in the corridor catching his breath and let out a relieved sigh. Exhausted after the fight, he decided to take whatever was inside the treasure chest and head back, convinced it would not matter anymore if the labyrinth disappeared tomorrow. He opened the chest and cautiously wondered what was inside. Looking in, he found a candle and read that it was a night-calling candle said to make nearby people act impulsively, with a warning that it could not be used outside rooms and only worked once. Back in the classroom, a girl noticed his expression, called him Sino, and asked if something good had happened. Startled, he was told he had not stopped smiling all day. Embarrassed, he admitted it really must have been showing on his face. As she left, she said there were still things she needed to confirm about the dungeon from that morning, and that she would probably investigate more later. Watching someone rise from a chair, he admitted to himself that the real problem was becoming impossible to ignore. He tensed at his desk and thought about his partner, worrying about what would happen if he used that item. As class was about to begin, the teacher announced that homeroom was starting and ordered everyone to stand. A cheerful girl laughed awkwardly, apologized, and admitted that with 3 of the 4 already gone, she had no idea who she was even supposed to talk to. Sino stepped into the room, apologized for interrupting, and asked whether Harumachi-sensei was there. The woman turned in surprise and remarked that if it was not Sino, then this visit was unusually rare. Looking uneasy, Sino said he had come because he wanted to consult her about something. She right away guessed the issue, and asked whether he still had not paid next year's tuition fee. As the room fell silent, she grimly reasoned that Sino's parents were adventurers, then realized they must have spent all their money on the newest underwater equipment. Sino bent down and desperately begged her to persuade his foolish parents to stop, adding that he would even cancel his own request if necessary. She quickly agreed, said she would get ready and visit the principal, and asked whether she could leave early, while another staff member accepted at once. They arrived together at Sino's home, and she directly asked him where his parents were. Sino hesitated and said they should probably be back already, then added that if they waited a little longer, they still might return. Harumachi-sensei admitted the waiting was getting to her and said they should hold on just a little longer. Sino politely asked her to sit on the sofa and wait, promising to bring tea and sweets, and she thanked him. As he walked away, Sino anxiously wondered what the magic tool would actually do now that everything had gone wrong. He returned with tea and apologized for the wait, and Harumachi-sensei thanked him as he set everything on the table. Noticing the candle, Harumachi-sensei asked what it was, and Sino explained that it was an aroma candle. He added that collecting them was his mother's hobby. Harumachi-sensei said she did not mind, and Sino decided that, since she had never used it before, he might as well try it now. Once lit, the candle burned with an ordinary-looking flame, and an uneasy silence stretched between them as nothing happened. Seeing no clear effect, Sino thought maybe nothing had happened after all, and prepared to apologize to Harumachi-sensei. But in the very next instant, his body locked up as a strange reaction slammed into him. Sino all of a sudden felt unwell in a way he could not understand, and the change left him rattled and confused. Harumachi-sensei, unsteady and flustered, called out to Sino in a strained voice, and he answered her nervously. Forcing herself through the embarrassment, Harumachi-sensei asked him to come a little closer. As she shifted closer on the sofa, Sino jerked back in shock and called out to Harumachi-sensei in disbelief. The air turned painfully tense as she urged him to endure it and keep going. Harumachi-sensei hesitantly asked whether anything had been troubling him lately, saying that at his age he might have been feeling lonely. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. Harumachi-sensei, red to the ears and barely holding herself together, said that if one of her students felt lonely, then as his teacher she had to do something. The distance between them became painfully close, and Harumachi-sensei urgently called Sino's name as both of them froze in shock. Sino panicked and begged her to stop, reminding her that she was his teacher even as the moment slipped further out of control. Harumachi-sensei, flushed and sweating, told Sino to leave everything to her and insisted he did not need to worry about any of it. Sino, overwhelmed and shaken, said it was all right and convinced himself that if he endured this much, it would be enough for Harumachi-sensei. As Harumachi-sensei breathed sharply, Sino became completely flustered and admitted he could think of nothing except his teacher. In a brutally awkward moment, Harumachi-sensei called Sino's name while he stared at her in shock and panic. In the dim silence, Harumachi-sensei quietly called to Sino and asked for one more try. Sino shockily answered his teacher while realizing the situation had grown far worse than he had expected. Harumachi-sensei looked dazed and shaken, as if she could no longer process what was happening. Sino, left tense and shaken by the ordeal, asked that they keep what happened strictly between them. Harumachi-sensei nervously agreed and admitted that keeping it quiet would help her immensely. Sino told her that for now she should go home, adding that he would somehow deal with his parents on his own. Harumachi-sensei turned away and quietly apologized, unable to face Sino after the painfully awkward incident. Alone on the couch, Sino lay there exhausted and tried to steady his breathing as the aftermath drained him. He checked himself in confusion and wondered whether his level had increased at all from what had happened. After confirming he was fine, Sino exhaled and headed back down into the dungeon once more. Looking at the mark in his palm, he realized with surprise that his love-related stat had increased. Sino steeled himself and accepted that he could not take back what had already happened. Even knowing someone else might get hurt because of it, he swore he would press on and conquer this dungeon. He concluded that the inappropriate incident with Harumachi-sensei had raised him to level 5. As he walked on, Sino wondered just how effective this love-based skill would be when he finally tested it. In the dungeon corridor, Sino remembered taking this route the day before and decided he would go no farther than where he had stopped then. Recalling the note, Sino realized there were still 2 treasures left on this floor and thought that if the non-boss threats here ranged from level 1 to 5, now was the best time to collect them all. He reminded himself that the labyrinth had to be mapped by hand because neither radio signals nor compasses worked inside. He noted that the labyrinth structure was thankfully simple, with paths only meeting at right angles and no changes in elevation. He also noticed that torches had been placed along the walls at regular intervals. Checking the time, Sino confirmed that time passed inside the labyrinth at the same speed as it did outside. From that, he concluded that this dungeon could be treated as a separate dimension cut off from reality. Staring into the vast vertical space, he wondered if that impossible scale was only possible because it existed in another dimension. His thoughts cut off when he spotted what looked like a giant mouse ahead, and the sudden sight put him on edge. He right away corrected himself, realizing that in a place like this it had to be a monster, and he readied his blade. Staying cautious, Sino decided that before anything else, he needed to confirm the monster's level. Sano inspected the creature and confirmed it was only level 1, which made him think the fight would be easy. The mouse monster all of a sudden lunged, and the abrupt attack snapped all his focus to it. Sino reacted in time and cut the monster down in a single swing, letting out a sharp breath. With the battle over in one hit, he judged that the love-based effect was at least this powerful. Looking at his map, Sano realized the floor was much larger than expected, and that searching a rest would take a long time, but then he spotted something ahead and stopped cold. He found a small room and right away fixed his eyes on what was inside. Seeing no sign of nearby monsters, Sino recognized the object as a treasure chest. As he looked closer, he noticed a rose-like plant coiled around the chest. The flower looked like a beautiful blue rose, but the instant he noticed it, something beside the chest all of a sudden moved. Sino recoiled with a grunt as the plant lashed out and caught him off guard. Sino realized the rose monster was level 5, and the danger of the chest trap became clear in an instant. Catching his breath, he admitted that a treasure chest was never going to be that easy. As the vines whipped toward him, he snapped back with an angry shout and struck at the plant. He winced as the thorns snagged his adventuring clothes, realizing they restricted his movement and left him unsure how to fight it. With the thorny rose looming over the chest, Sino kept his distance and desperately searched for a way to deal with it. Then, he all of a sudden remembered something and focused on the clothes the thorns had caught. He reasoned that if the vines only latched onto those outer clothes, then he still might have a way out. Acting on that idea, he let the monster seize the clothing while using it to pin the vines in place. Raising his sword overhead, Sino committed to the counterattack with a sharp shout. He brought the blade down with full force, cut through the trapped mass, and drove himself to finish it with one more strike. Sino looked down at his torn and filthy clothes, muttered that everything was a disaster, and told himself it was fine as long as he could leave the labyrinth and return like yesterday. With the battle over, he turned back to the chest and focused on finally claiming the treasure. Inside, he found an umbrella-shaped item and hesitated in confusion as he tried to figure out what it was. Reading the note, he learned it was a fate-experiencing umbrella that strongly influenced a girl's feelings when entering it together, and he regretted that it was not an item that raised his level. Though wounded, Sino decided to keep moving and concluded that while the item had many possible uses, it would not directly make him stronger. Just then, a loud scream echoed through the labyrinth, and Sino froze. Looking down the corridor, he recognized the cry as the same one he had heard the day before, while a tree-like monster lurked nearby. He identified the creature as another level 5 monster, and right away understood the danger. Sino realized it was the same level as the rose from earlier and likely just as troublesome, but since he still had magic tools and could afford to take some damage, he resolved not to give up and to draw the monster in. Later, outside at school, another student called out to Sino and remarked that something about him seemed different. The scene stays tense as the moment keeps building. The scene stays tense as the moment keeps building. The scene stays tense as the moment keeps building. The scene stays tense as the moment keeps building. The scene stays tense as the moment keeps building. The scene stays tense as the moment keeps building. The scene stays tense as the moment keeps building. The scene stays tense as the moment keeps building. The scene stays tense as the moment keeps building. The scene stays tense as the moment keeps building. Harumachi-sensei entered the classroom, told everyone to take their seats, and announced that homeroom was starting. She noted that the bell had already rung, yet she seemed as calm and unchanged as ever, as if yesterday's incident with the expected society member had never happened. After clearing her throat, she moved on and called for the morning salute with Natsuno Gore. She led the class through standing at attention and bowing, then paused when someone responded to her. As she tried to continue, a sudden sound shattered her focus and made her falter. Her thoughts spiraled into a deeply uncomfortable memory, and the tension around her instantly thickened. She froze in flustered silence, visibly overwhelmed as the awkwardness became impossible to hide. Trying to compose herself, she admitted she was mentally falling apart while the same distracting sound kept throwing her off. A boy watching the scene realized he had clearly affected her far more than expected. Rain began falling outside, and as the gloomy weather settled over the school, he quietly remarked that it was raining just as the forecast had said. The boy gave a faint, knowing smile, and the girl reacted in surprise as the tension between them sharpened. In the nearly empty classroom, he stayed behind while she stood nearby, and the silence made the space between them feel heavier. He mentioned that Natsuno-san had been called out by the teacher, speaking like he had already figured something out. As the rain kept falling outside, he decided to wait there for her and make it seem like he had simply forgotten his umbrella. Sano noticed him still in the room and asked why he had not gone home yet. He explained that he had forgotten his umbrella, so he was waiting for the rain to ease up. Taking his answer at face value, she said she would head out first and see him tomorrow. He all of a sudden stopped her and pointed out that she had forgotten hers too, calling after her with urgency. He warned her not to tell him she planned to walk home soaked, clearly unable to ignore the thought. She apologized to Maya for making her wait, then brushed it off with a bright remark that Hiyori always gave her trouble anyway. Maya opened her umbrella, and the two girls got ready to head home together. As they stepped outside, Maya casually mentioned that Sino seemed to be their neighbor, and Hiyori paused at that. Sino noticed them as he was about to leave, and Hiyori reacted in surprise when she realized he was there. Maya called out that Sino had claimed he forgot his umbrella, and she pointed out that he was standing there just fine. Sino admitted he had actually had the umbrella in his bag the whole time and said he had simply been careless. Sensing her opening, Maya urged Hiyori to walk with Sino under his umbrella, and Hiyori instantly panicked in embarrassment. Maya pushed it even further and said Hiyori should stay under Sino's umbrella until they reached the convenience store, while Hiyori flusteredly tried to stop her. Sino quietly asked if they should go, and Hiyori agreed as Maya laughed and hurried them along. With a confident look, Sanyo realized that the fate-experiencing umbrella could finally let Natsuno-san walk with him under it, and he prepared to test its effect. Hiyori, all of a sudden, went rigid in shock as the moment shifted in a way she had never expected. Hiyori all of a sudden asks what is wrong, and Sino quickly insists that nothing is wrong and apologizes. Maya says she sensed something strange just now, but since things seem to be going well, she lets it pass. Sino silently urges the fate-experiencing umbrella to do its job. Hiyori notices her umbrella is larger than his and suggests that they switch umbrellas instead. Sino freezes in alarm, then hurriedly says his umbrella is fine as he tries to shut that idea down. From behind, Maya points out that if they keep going like this, the other two girls will get soaked. Realizing the item will fail if Hiyori is not under his umbrella, Sino panics, tries to object, and desperately scrambles for a solution. Maya remarks that Sino probably does not want to carry an umbrella covered in flower patterns, catching him off guard. Maya laughs that making a boy walk around with that kind of umbrella would be awkward, and Sino politely apologizes. Sino reflects that he still does not understand Akitsu's case, but if he successfully keeps Natsuno under the umbrella now, he may be able to draw Akitsu under it later too, and he calls the situation unbelievably lucky. As the rain falls, Maya laughs that Sino is acting too stiff and tells him he should be a little more natural. The moment becomes overwhelming and emotionally difficult for both of them. Sino realizes Maya is usually calm, but the instant she spots something interesting, she all of a sudden becomes intensely energetic. Maya cheerfully explains that when something interesting happens, she wants to enjoy it to the fullest as long as it does not trouble anyone. Hiyori quietly admits that it actually does trouble her. Flustered, Hiyori quickly says she did not mean she hated being with Sino, and Sino can only apologize as she struggles to explain herself. Hiyori nervously confesses that she has never walked under one umbrella with a boy before. Staying silent on the outside, Sino realizes Hiyori is clearly acting differently than usual and concludes that the umbrella's effect is definitely working. Hiyori awkwardly says that even if it is important for classmates to get along, being let off alone under one umbrella with him feels troublesome, while Sino insists that is not the point because he had wanted to talk with her properly at least once. With growing confidence, Sino concludes that there is no doubt the umbrella is extremely effective. Sino casually asks Natsuno whether she is seeing anyone, and she jolts in surprise before saying she is not and asking why he wants to know. Keeping close under the umbrella, Sino says he simply finds it strange that someone as nice as Natsuno does not have a boyfriend. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. In a flustered panic, Natsuno insists that there is no way and repeatedly denies it. Watching her reaction, Sino becomes convinced that she is definitely being influenced. Maya watches with excitement and remarks that the situation has really turned into something interesting. As they arrive at the convenience store, Sino suggests they switch. Natsuno eagerly says it is her turn with Sino now, while he can only answer awkwardly. Looking tense but determined, Natsuno says Akitsu should come under the umbrella too. Seeing that, Sino concludes that Akitsu will be affected too. As Akitsu approaches under her own umbrella, Natsuno moves in close to Sino and nervously jokes about becoming important to him, while Akitsu is caught off guard by the sudden sight. Leaning in with a teasing smile, Natsuno asks Akitsu how she became so interested in him so fast. Sino is left sweating in confusion and wonders if he somehow has a strange power that affects people around him. Akitsu stares sharply and suggests there may be some hidden secret inside that umbrella. Hearing that accusation from behind him in the rain, Sino can only answer in bafflement. With a sly look, Natsuno presses the idea further and asks if that is why he hesitated to trade umbrellas with her earlier. Sino quickly denies it and reasons that if she had known, she would not have stepped away from the umbrella and gotten soaked, while Natsuno anxiously wonders if the umbrella really could be some magical item. Flushed and carried away, Natsuno urges him to tell her, and the exchange turns awkwardly personal as she blurts out an uneasy proposal. Natsuno right away startles at her own word, then realizes she may have gone too far. Sino regains his composure and concludes that Akitsu's reaction is probably just another effect of the umbrella, though he still believes she is likely to be influenced soon. As they walk through the rain, Sino keeps pressing Akitsu about her earlier claim, insisting the umbrella is completely normal while deciding to stay calm and keep questioning her until he gets home. Natsuno moves even closer and asks if she can hold the umbrella, leaving Sino caught off guard and unsure how to answer. Akitsu all of a sudden cuts in and firmly says Natsuno cannot do that, then hurries her by saying she left laundry outside and needs to stop fooling around and go home. Natsuno laughs and agrees that it is getting pretty late, while Akitsu calls her Hiyori and tries to move things along. Even so, Natsuno stays close to Sino and says she wants to remain like that with him while he reacts in visible panic. Akitsu loses patience, declares that they are going home, and pulls Natsuno away as Natsuno protests in surprise. Reaching the neighborhood, Sino notes that they have already arrived. Looking at the houses around them, Sino realizes the girls are actually his neighbors, and Natsuno casually says they should meet again sometime. At the entrance, Natsuno cheerfully waves goodbye to Sino. Akitsu awkwardly follows with a stiff farewell, and Sino returns the goodbye. As the moment ends, Natsuno quietly suggests they can continue their conversation another time. Sino tells himself he has to stay cautious around both Akitsu and Natsuno. Entering his home with the umbrella closed, Sino thinks he especially needs to stay on guard when it comes to Akitsu. He decides that for now, his priority is gathering more items to raise his level. Inside the dungeon, Sino checks his progress and notes that the last item on floor 1 is there, and that over the past 2 days he has already covered most of the outer border. Looking at the map on his phone, he realizes he still has not finished searching the dungeon's inner area. A large beast all of a sudden appears in the corridor, and Sino reacts as it lets out a threatening growl. Watching it from cover, he realizes the creature is far bigger than the mouse-like monster he encountered yesterday and concludes that it is a completely different kind of monster. He identifies the creature as level 4. Sino judges that with his current level 1 strength, defeating it in 2 or 3 hits would be difficult, though he doubts it can seriously injure him either. As the beast lunges, Sino strikes back instantly and lands a sharp blow while bracing for the clash. Sino is stunned that the monster went down in a single attack, and he realizes that hitting a vital point from a surprise angle seems to deal far more damage. Checking his map as he walks, Sino notes that he has already explored about 70% of it and feels the search is dragging on. He spots what looks like the final room ahead and notices a treasure chest waiting inside. Sino sees a level 3 monster near the chest and concludes that each of these rooms likely contains both a treasure chest and a guarding monster. Deciding to move first, Sino launches himself forward without hesitation. The beast whips around with a furious roar, but Sino slips in close and cuts through the clash before it can overpower him. Catching his breath, Sino confirms that he brought it down in one hit again, because aiming for vital points deals heavy damage. He warns himself that this approach is dangerous, but for now, he has to keep targeting vital points if he wants to survive. Standing before the chest, Sino hopes the item inside will help him raise his level. As he opens it, Sino admits he still has no idea how to reach the next floor. Opening the chest, Sino finds a suspicious bottle and reads that it is a craving extract, which right away puts him on edge. As he checks the description, he realizes the item's effect is highly inappropriate, and understands it can force dangerous impulses in whoever drinks it. Back in class, Sino sits in silence while Natsuno stands at the front and the lesson moves on. He notices that Akitsuki-san has not changed much, but he is startled by how different Natsuno-san seems now. Sino decides that using the craving extract on Natsuno-san would be a bad idea, since Akitsuki-san is already far too suspicious of him. He also rules out Harumachi-sensei, admitting to himself that using it on her would be wrong too. Looking around the classroom, Sino concludes that only one option remains. He approaches Yurishima-san and casually calls out to her. When she asks what he wants, Sino says there was something in the lecture he did not understand and asks if she can help him with the right number. After a quiet pause, Yurishima-san agrees that she does not mind helping him. Sino thanks Yurishima-san, relieved that asking her for help went more smoothly than he expected. When Yurishima-san asks what part confused him, Sino says it was the section on trigonometric ratios. Nearby classmates call Hiyori back, and the atmosphere in the room remains watchful and faintly tense. Sino thinks Akitsu-san probably will not stir up trouble today, though even he does not sound fully convinced. As Yurishima-san keeps explaining the problem, Sino grows flustered while she calmly points out yet another step he should follow. After listening carefully, Sino tells Yurishima-san he understands it completely now, and she quietly accepts that. Just as he starts to leave, Yurishima-san stops him and tells him to wait. Turning back, Sino says he has troubled her enough already, so he wants to repay her by getting her something to drink. Yurishima-san right away refuses and says she did not need anything. Sino refuses to drop it and insists he will not feel right unless he does this, saying he will go buy it. As he heads off, Sino thinks this is taking more effort than expected, but then reminds himself that the other person is Yorushima-san. His focus shifts to the dangerous craving extract, and the moment tightens as he recalls exactly what it does. Sino remembers using a syringe the day before to inject 20 milliliters of the extract into the bottle he brought with him. He tells himself that amount should be enough to intensify the effect. When he returns, Sino apologizes for the wait, and Yorushima-san quietly acknowledges him. He hands her the drink, explains that the vending machine must have been malfunctioning because it feels warm, and she accepts it with thanks. Sitting across from her, Sino watches in silence as Yorushima-san steadies herself and lifts the bottle to drink. Yorushima-san drinks from the bottle without hesitation, and the tension in the room quietly starts to climb. After finishing it, she goes still, tightens her grip on the bottle, and falls into a strained silence as something in her begins to change. Seeing that she drank every last drop, Sino is caught off guard, and Yorushima-san weakly calls out to him. Yorushima-san all of a sudden says she is thirsty, and when Sino offers to get her another bottle since she already finished one, the mood abruptly shifts. Yorushima-san refuses and says she does not want water because what she wants is something else. In a deeply uneasy moment, Yorushima-san bluntly says she wants something from Sino himself and urges him to give it to her. Sino is left frozen as he realizes she is saying all of this without the slightest embarrassment. Trying to excuse it to himself, Sino thinks Yorushima-san has helped him study so much, thanks her, and forces himself to overlook how wrong the moment feels. As the situation turns deeply uncomfortable, Sino nervously braces himself while the tension keeps mounting. Yorushima-san, speaking with unsettling directness, asks exactly how that would work, making the exchange even more awkward. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. With her composure fraying, Yorushima-san asks if they can do it one more time, showing the pressure has not eased at all. Sino admits he already gave a lot and says it may be difficult to do it again, then asks what they should do now. Sino awkwardly suggests another way to handle it, and Yorushima-san answers with only strained silence. As he hesitates, Sino admits he wants to see just how far the craving extract's effects can go. He reasons that pushing things further would make it easier, driving the situation into even more inappropriate territory. Yorushima-san firmly stops him there and says there will be clear limits. Sino realizes that is the limit and says the effect must only be driving her urge for the substance, nothing beyond that. Even so, Yorushima-san says she is still willing to continue, and the situation grows even more uncomfortable when she also mentions changing her clothes. She explains that doing it that way will make it end faster, while she starts taking off her jacket without hesitation. Sino hurriedly says he understands and thinks that forcing anything further would cross her boundaries, so this is as far as she will go. Yorushima-san asks if he wants her to remove even more, and when he nervously says yes, the moment turns even more dangerously personal. Watching her change clothes at his request, Sino freezes as the weight of the situation becomes impossible to ignore. Yorushima-san regains her composure and says she is going home. Sino thanks her for everything today as she starts to leave the classroom. Yorushima-san calmly tells him not to worry about it. Left alone, Sino wonders with a dry laugh whether Yorushima-san is always like this or whether her mental state is unusual. Looking at the mark on his hand, he realizes its level is rising. As he heads out, Sino thinks that even without going further, the incident still raised the level, and he wonders whether that is because of the item or the act itself. When he gets home, he notices someone at the door and assumes it might be a delivery. He opens the door and cautiously calls out a greeting. To his surprise, a girl appears at his doorstep and nervously says his name, asking for his attention. Sino is stunned to find Hiyori Natsuno standing there in person. Hearing someone outside, Sino hesitantly wonders if it is Sensei. He finds Hiyori Natsuno at the door, and she anxiously asks why he is just standing there before saying she should come inside quickly so no one sees her. Once inside his room, Natsuno apologizes for showing up so all of a sudden, and Sino tells her it is fine. Natsuno notices what Sino is wearing, and when he awkwardly explains he was planning to practice because he is going on an adventure this Saturday, she right away understands. With a faint smile, Natsuno remarks that he really does seem eager to become like his adventurer parents, and Sino nervously agrees. She gently warns him not to overdo it or get hurt, and he readily accepts the advice. Natsuno then asks about his parents, and Sino explains they left for adventuring yesterday but already talked over his tuition with him, which reassures her. Sino offers to make her some tea, but Natsuno stops him and asks him to stay seated, and he agrees. Natsuno all of a sudden bows her head deeply and apologizes for what happened the other day, making Sino freeze. Still flustered, Natsuno admits she was also at fault, but Sino right away tells her no. Natsuno insists the blame is hers, saying that even if it was not entirely her fault, she still crossed a line no teacher ever should, and says she should be the one held responsible. Bowing her head, Natsuno says she is ready to accept any punishment, even quitting her job or paying compensation, but Sino quickly tells her to stop. Sino calmly tells her it is fine, that he does not mind, and that he will not tell anyone. He adds that if Sensei stopped being a teacher, the students at the academy would only be left feeling lonely. Overwhelmed with relief, Natsuno softly says Sino's name and thanks him. As she heads out, Natsuno says that was all she came to apologize for and asks him to see her again at school, while Sino agrees. After she leaves and the door closes, Sino is left standing there in silence. Letting out a breath as he lies back, Sino thinks he really should stop using items on Sensei just to raise his level. He all of a sudden realizes he never heard a single sound from the entrance after Sensei left, and the thought instantly unsettles him. When he looks toward the entryway and sees her shoes still there, Sino freezes and rushes downstairs in alarm. Sino reels in disbelief as it hits him, and all he can think is that there is no way. He races to the entrance, sees the door open, and calls out to Sensei in alarm. Growing more uneasy, Sino calls her Harumachi-sensei and then Sensei again, but gets no response. He finds Natsuno standing inside the passage, and she turns toward him in shock as she says his name and demands to know what this place is. Sino is overwhelmed by panic, thinking this is bad and that everything has now been exposed. As he hesitates, he frantically thinks of what to do, considers using an item, then instantly rejects it as useless here. Cornered, Sino awkwardly admits he does not know what to do and struggles to explain himself. Natsuno starts moving deeper into the passage, and Sino urgently calls out that it will be dangerous if she goes any farther. Ignoring his warning, she keeps going while Sino grabs his weapon, curses under his breath, and begs Sensei to wait. As he runs after her, Sino worries that if she encounters a monster, fixing his excuse will not matter anymore, and he is shaken by how strangely Sensei is acting. Sino urgently calls out to Sensei and tries to stop her right away. Natsuno notices a staircase that should not be there, and Sino is stunned as she keeps descending. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. Natsuno says he finally caught up to her, while Sino reaches her out of breath and visibly alarmed. Natsuno angrily demands to know what this place is and why he brought her here, while Sino desperately asks her to let him explain. Before he can explain, they come face to face with a monster, and Sino urgently repeats that he was trying to warn her. Sino is horrified by the monster's sudden appearance and thinks this is the worst possible timing, especially with a treasure chest sitting nearby. He realizes that a treasure chest in a room this small is extremely unusual, which makes the whole situation even more suspicious. As Natsuno stands in front of him, Sino starts to suspect this was deliberate and wonders if Sensei was being controlled, especially after how strangely she had been acting. In tense silence, Sino and Natsuno brace themselves as the pressure of the moment closes in around them. Sino urgently tells Sensei that this is no time to freeze and begs her to take cover, while she demands to know what is happening. He urges her to move first and says there is no time to explain, and she quickly agrees. Facing the enormous level 10 monster alone, Sino steels himself and admits he may not be able to win, but he has to try. He lunges forward with his weapon and pours everything he has into a desperate attack. The strike glances off without breaking through, and Sino is shaken as the monster shrugs off the blow. The creature lashes out at once, and Sino curses as he is all of a sudden seized and pinned by its writhing limbs. Trapped in its grip, Sino bitterly realizes he charged in far too recklessly. As the monster opens wide, Sino panics and realizes he cannot cut through the body of a level 10 creature. Seeing Sino in danger, Natsuno charges forward and cries out his name. Natsuno shouts at the beast to let Sino go and boldly draws its attention onto herself. As Natsuno faces the looming monster, she freezes in shock and cries out before finally recognizing Sino. Bound by the creature's limbs, Sino realizes this is his chance and readies a strike even while trapped. Natsuno urgently calls for Sensei and screams for Sino to get away, while Sino notices Sensei's torch is burning out fast. Spotting the weak point, Sino yells that he sees an opening and lunges in, while Natsuno cries out his name. Sino drives his attack straight into the monster with everything he has left. The blow lands, and the monster breaks apart across the stone floor near the treasure chest as Sino staggers back from the impact. Breathes sharply for breath, Sino says he only won because of Sensei's torch attack, while Sensei says he was the one who saved her. As relief crashes over them, Sensei catches Sino as he falls, calling his name in alarm. Shaken to the core, Sensei calls him an idiot while holding onto him tightly. She says she was terrified and demands to know why he did not run when he had the chance, while he weakly tells her she is overreacting. As Sensei supports him, Sino realizes the moment feels strangely calming, somehow different from before. A faint sense of nostalgia washes over him, bringing with it unexpected comfort. Sensei pulls back just enough to scold him sharply, furious that he was not listening and still upset over what he put her through. Saino quietly assures her that he is listening, then admits it has been a long time since anyone worried about him this much. Still shaken, Sensei demands a full explanation and presses him about the strange pink monster from earlier. Knowing he can no longer hide the truth after everything that happened in the dungeon, Saino decides he has to explain it all properly. He apologizes and suggests they calm down first by leaving the maze, promising to explain everything after, and she agrees. Once the immediate tension eases, Saino says he will check what is inside the treasure chest for now. Opening the chest, he finds an unfamiliar hanging item and pauses, unsure what it is. As Sensei leans in and asks what the object is, Saino hesitates and can only admit that he does not know yet. Sensei all of a sudden stiffens and lets out a startled breath as something in the air abruptly changes. When Saino asks what is wrong, Sensei studies the feeling and wonders if this is the same kind of incident as before. After a brief pause, Sensei realizes this is different and says so with growing unease. Saino checks the item description and realizes it is a nightmare-inducing bell that can warp a target's mind and force false memories and emotions into their consciousness. He quickly puts it together and suspects the bell activated by accident when it struck the corner of the treasure chest. As the warning about the item sinks in, Saino realizes he has to stop this before it gets worse. Under the bell's influence, he all of a sudden grabs onto Sensei and blurts out distorted feelings he cannot control. Sensei is left red-faced and stunned as the situation turns deeply uncomfortable, and all she can do is call Saino's name in confusion. Saino keeps forcing the confused outburst on her directly as the emotional pressure becomes impossible to ignore. Overtaken by the false impulse, he admits he has been driven toward this, and the moment turns even more dangerous. Under the bell's influence, Saino clings to Sensei, says he feels strongly attached to her, and begs her to keep the dungeon a secret as the moment turns painfully awkward. Still ruled by those false feelings, he insists they could stay like this every day, making the situation even more inappropriate. Then the tense haze all of a sudden shatters, and Sensei is left staring in confused silence as she tries to process what just happened. Saino quickly regains control and urges Sensei to focus on leaving the maze, while she shakily agrees. Sensei quietly takes in his words and begins to piece together the situation with uneasy understanding. After learning about the basement, Sensei reflects that they explored it, encountered monsters inside, and somehow returned safely even though their injuries had vanished, while admitting there is still so much she does not understand. Overwhelmed by everything she has heard, Sensei admits she cannot make sense of any of it and lets out a strained laugh. Saino explains that their parents do not know about the basement and asks what her parents would think. He warns that if Saino's adventurer parents were here, he would worry less, but since Saino is dealing with this alone, he cannot allow it to continue and asks if there is anything he can do. Sensei firmly says her parents cannot know, promises to keep the matter secret for now, and insists Saino stay away from it until they figure out how to handle everything. Sensei looks unusually worried about him, and Saino realizes she no longer believes yesterday's item was just a one-time effect, while she firmly warns him never to enter that place again. As class begins, Saino sits in uneasy silence and thinks that if he cannot enter the maze anymore, he will have no way to retrieve items or do anything else there. Sensei enters the room and greets everyone, instantly drawing the class's full attention. The students are stunned by how different she looks and whisper in disbelief, wondering if this is real and why she is not wearing her usual jersey. Saino recognizes Harumachi-sensei at once and realizes the item's effects are clearly showing in her appearance. One of the students directly asks Sensei why she is not wearing her usual jersey outfit. Trying to stay composed, Sensei explains that she simply thought it was time to start wearing something different. Standing before the class, Sensei nervously asks whether the change seems strange, while Saino watches in silence. Saino right away tells her the new look is great. Overwhelmed by the unexpected praise, Sensei covers her face in embarrassment as Saino privately hopes this might make her forgive the dungeon incident. As the final bell rings, the room erupts with students saying they are exhausted and ready to go home. Once the classroom clears, Saino approaches and politely asks whether Harumachi-sensei is there. Saino says he has something to discuss with her, but she refuses at once even as he insists it will only take a moment. When he calls out to her again, Harumachi-sensei turns red and avoids facing him, making her embarrassment impossible to miss. Unable to speak openly, she writes a note asking him to communicate through writing instead. Saino realizes just how embarrassed she is, stays quiet for a moment, and agrees to follow her lead. Through their notes, Saino asks her to reconsider what she said about that place, and she writes back that he may go there, but only on one condition. Harumachi-sensei finishes the condition in writing and says that if he goes, he has to take her with him. Stunned, Sino asks if she is seriously planning to come along. Haramachi-sensei answers that the place is dangerous and says protecting her students is part of a teacher's duty. Haramachi-sensei writes that the place is dangerous, and if he refuses to let her accompany him, then she will not allow him to go, leaving Sino resigned because she already knows and because having her there may make leveling up easier. Accepting her condition, Sino asks when she plans to come over. Blushing, Haramachi-sensei writes that she can go tonight, and Sino says he will be looking forward to it. After excusing himself, Sino leaves the classroom. As he walks away, Sino decides he will keep exploring the dungeon with her from now on, though he also knows he must hide details like the magic items in his level. In the hallway, Akitsu-san cheerfully calls out to Sino and greets him. Caught off guard, Sino nervously greets Akitsu-san back. Akitsu-san asks whether he had business with Sensei, and Sino admits it was just a little, drawing a curious hum from her. Akitsu-san remarks that Sensei has become really pretty, and Sino agrees, saying he thought the same when he saw her up close. With a flushed smile, Akitsu-san says Sensei seems unusually happy, making the implication all of a sudden impossible to ignore. Flustered, Sino admits that what she said caught him off guard too. With a knowing smile, Akitsu-san wonders if Sino might have had something to do with it. She quickly brushes it off as a joke, smiling like she is testing his reaction. Akitsu-san asks how things went with Yorishima-san yesterday, and Sino hurriedly says she only taught him how to study. Getting uncomfortably close, Akitsu-san presses him and asks if that is really all. She then remarks that Yorishima-san has changed a bit, hinting that part of that change may have come from something beyond what she expected. In a quieter, more serious tone, Akitsu-san calls Sino's name and stops him cold. She tells him she does not care if he gets involved with several people. But with a sharp glare, she warns that if he makes Hiyori cry, she will never forgive him. As Maya calls out about going to lunch, Akitsu-san turns away and agrees to go. As Sino watches from a distance, Maya asks Akitsu whether she had just been talking with him, and Akitsu coyly says that answer is a secret. Sino decides he has to do something before Akitsu exposes him, even as he admits he still knows almost nothing about her. Later, as school winds down, Sino notices Natsuno-san near the lockers. Natsuno-san startles when she all of a sudden notices Sino while holding her shoes. Sino asks why she is there by herself and where Akitsu-san is, and she explains that Akitsu already went home because she had plans. Looking uneasy, Natsuno-san wonders if those plans might be something she is not supposed to be involved in. Sino brushes that concern aside and says it is probably nothing since they always go home together, while Natsuno-san nervously agrees. Sano realizes this is the perfect chance to learn more about Akitsu-san through Natsuno-san. As they walk together, he also thinks this may help him raise his level with her at the same time. Taking the opportunity, Sino asks Natsuno-san to come to his place if she is free. Natsuno-san is caught off guard and blurts out her surprise when she realizes Sino has invited her to his house. After arriving, Sino announces that they are here, while Natsuno-san timidly apologizes for imposing. Sitting in his home, Natsuno-san admits she cannot believe she actually came to Sino's house. When Natsuno-san asks whether Sino's parents have returned yet, he explains that he will be living on his own for a while because they left on an adventure. Natsuno-san quietly says she understands and notes that in that sense, they are the same. Realizing she may have revealed too much, Natsuno-san all of a sudden panics and hurriedly brushes it off as nothing, leaving Sino confused. Sino tells her he is going to get some tea and asks her to wait there, and Natsuno-san agrees. Alone for a moment, Sino decides he can use the craving extract one more time. He reasons that if Natsuno-san's memories remain, Akitsu-san might learn the truth from her, so he resolves to use the item despite knowing it will put him through another difficult ordeal while helping him raise his level. Sino returns carrying tea, apologizes for the wait, and Natsuno-san thanks him. Sino decides that before using the item, he should first ask her about Akitsu-san. He brings up what has been bothering him, saying Natsuno-san and Akitsu-san are always together at school and even live next door, so they must be close, and Natsuno-san confirms they have been together since kindergarten and that Maya means a great deal to her. He realizes that after everything Akitsu-san has been through with Natsuno-san, her urge to protect her runs deep, and he notes that Natsuno-san is clearly someone especially important to Akitsu-san. Sino admits that sometimes he feels there is something off about Akitsu-san, even if he cannot put it into words. Natsuno-san responds that Maya can be a little absent-minded at times, suggesting that may be the strangeness he noticed. Sino says that is probably it, while Natsuno-san assumes he must mean the weird things Akitsu-san does for fun, like the umbrella incident. Even so, Sino can tell from Natsuno-san's reaction that she is not about to reveal anything important. Then Natsuno-san says Sino actually reminds her a lot of Maya. Caught completely off guard, Sino stares at her and asks if she really means that. Natsuno-san gently insists that Maya is a truly wonderful girl and asks him to get along with her too. Sino forces a shaky smile and agrees, but the unease on his face does not fade. As silence settles between them, Sino realizes he still has not learned enough about Akitsu-san and doubts Natsuno. San will say anything more. He reaches for the item and thinks that if this is all he is getting, he may have to use it on her now. Sino gets her attention, and Natsuno-san looks up and asks what is wrong. He quietly drops the item into the drink, setting his plan into motion. Natsuno-san all of a sudden reacts in confusion, clearly sensing that something has changed. Sino notices the item has vanished and realizes it worked, leaving him scrambling over what to do next. He anxiously thinks that luring Natsuno-san somewhere isolated just to test this would be too cruel, and he freezes. The mood turns deeply uncomfortable as Natsuno-san, dazed, reaches toward him while calling his name. As her clothes shift out of place, she absently comments on them, making the whole moment even more uncomfortable. Sino forces himself to stay calm and pushes ahead with a troubling test, pressing Natsuno-san with a harsh demand while she remains dazed and compliant. He steels himself and decides to get straight to the point. Seeing how obedient and emotionless she is, Sano wonders whether the effect will even work while she is in such an apathetic state. Time drags by in a suffocating silence inside the room. Natsuno-san all of a sudden seems to come back to herself a little and reacts in confusion. Sino lets out a breath and tells Natsuno-san it is already 6 p.m., asking if she is all right. Looking toward the clock, Natsuno-san startles when she realizes it is already 6 p.m. She quickly apologizes for staying too long and says she should head home. With her bag over her shoulder, Natsuno-san cheerfully says she will see him later and leaves. As Sino notices something strange, Natsuno-san turns and asks what is wrong. Hearing what sounds like a voice nearby, Sino instantly goes alert. As he looks up and spots Natsuno near the hidden area, he panics, fearing this is about to become another disaster like what happened with Sensei. Determined not to let anyone else discover the dungeon, Sino grabs Natsuno-san and urgently tries to stop her. He tells himself that if he can just calm her down, he might still keep this under control. Startled and embarrassed, Natsuno-san calls out to Sino in confusion while he tries to get her attention. Sino quickly lets go, apologizes at once, and admits that what he did was unconscious. Still shaken, Natsuno-san repeats his words in disbelief as she tries to process that he acted on instinct. Overwhelmed by the awkwardness, Natsuno-san hurriedly excuses herself and rushes toward the door. Left standing alone, Sino reflects that he grabbed her without thinking before he hears that same voice again. As the hidden entrance pulses focus once more, Sino insists to himself that he cannot let anyone else learn about it or get dragged into this. Outside the house, Natsuno-san walks away still flustered, admitting that Sino all of a sudden grabbing her had completely caught her off guard. She pauses by the wall, visibly trying to steady herself as the awkward moment keeps replaying in her mind. Just then, the doorbell rings and Sino heads to the entrance saying he is coming. When he opens the door, Natsuno-san all of a sudden steps inside and apologetically says she is coming in, leaving Sino caught off guard. As she enters, Natsuno-san notices how tense he is and asks what is wrong. Looking embarrassed, she explains that she just saw Akitsu near the house across from his and then reacts in surprise at her own words. She says she actually went back home because she did not want Akitsu to see her, and that it would be bad if any student noticed her there. Hearing that, Sino realizes that if Akitsu-san was near his house, that would explain why Natsuno-san came back instead of going home. Natsuno-san then remarked that it feels like Akitsu is lying in wait for something and asks whether she has some kind of business with him. Sino says Akitsu does not really have any business with him, but admits she seems suspicious of him, leaving Natsuno-san visibly uneasy. Natsuno-san says she does not think Akitsu knows about the dungeon, but she suspects Akitsu has been watching her and warns Sino to be careful around her, and Sino says he understands. Natsuno-san notices the item he is carrying and asks what it is, then casually says that is what it is. She explains that they are 6 shaku wooden poles and says they are bojutsu weapons. Natsuno-san reveals that her family runs a dojo called Mutengi Shinru that specializes in bojutsu. She says she brought the weapons because she thought they would help against the monsters, and Sino quietly acknowledges it. While showing the pole, Natsuno-san says she used to win many competitions before becoming a teacher, and Sino remarks that she seems surprisingly strong. With a faintly embarrassed smile, Natsuno-san admits that because of that background, she was not able to experience many typically girly things. Realizing she has talked too long, Natsuno-san apologizes, but Sino reassures her that it is completely fine. She quickly brightens again and suggests that they head into the dungeon, and Sino agrees. Once inside, Sino says he wants to confirm their level before they go down to the second layer, leaving Natsuno-san puzzled by the term. Sano asks Sensei to look at her right palm, and she repeats the question while staring at her hand. As she checks her palm in surprise, Sano tells her that it shows her level. Sino explains that levels increase through combat experience, then privately recalls an earlier condition and reasons that her level should be at least 1.